chapter 6 is where we're going to be, and it is a very powerful name. I'm so glad that you made it here with us this morning and that you got out of bed. I'm glad to have gotten out of bed this morning. Myself, been a little sick this week, as some of us have been, and I'm glad that you're here. We're talking about distractions this morning. You ever been distracted? And Jeff read the scripture this morning for sorry about that. All right. Okay. It happens. Sorry. I think it's like the first time in like 7 years I've actually left my phone on during service. So, who is the world? Hang on a minute. Hang on. Dude, I'll call you in a minute. See, I told you I work a lot. I mean, I'm going to call it, All right, distractions. So, that seemed to run over it, didn't it? That's kind of weird. All right, so distractions. You ever been distracted before? I mean, you get going. You ever walked into a room before and got in there and didn't know what you went in there for? You ever had that moment? You went in and you got in there and thought, what am I looking for, And then you come back and then you can't remember what it is. Dude, I'm preaching. No, sit down. I'll call him back. All right, sorry about that. So, I mean, you go in there and you're trying, you go, yeah, I'm in here, there's something and so you leave and you go, have you ever been in a conversation where you were talking and while you're talking, all of a sudden it kind of leaves you? What was I talking about? Right? You ever been there before? Sometimes I do that and it's like my ADD kicks in. I don't even know what we were talking about. I've had that happen before in sermons where I kind of got into a point. Y'all know that. I've got like 47 points and I forget what my point was. It happens. You get distracted. You ever been talking to somebody and they have something on their lip? You ever had that happen? And you're like, there's something on your lip or on your nose. Distractions happen. They come at many different times in our life. And we got to be careful as we do what God's called us to do. Dude, I'm preaching. I'm not taking the call. Jeez. It's hard to work at the Grove. You mean you're accessible 24 hours a day. Truly, these are all orchestrated phone calls, all right? Just to let you know, I'm not a jerk. Just like, I know you're dying, I'll talk to you in a little bit, I'm not that guy. I know some of y'all are like, I call him all the time. Is this what he's doing? He's just not answering my calls? It's not like this all the time. But we want you to know what distractions are like. This is what life is like oftentimes. You get into life and there's distractions all around you. You start out on Monday morning and you're going about your business. You know what the week's going to be like and something happens. Something comes up in your life and you're distracted. Something is said, something goes wrong, and you're distracted. We carry distractions in our pockets, just like what I was showing you this morning. My phone ringing, your phone ringing, we get distracted. We get distracted by good things. We get somewhere, we're doing something, you get distracted. You get distracted in marriage. What you set out to be as a husband doesn't really go that way. What you set out to be as a wife doesn't really go that way. You get distracted as a parent. You get distracted, different hobbies get you distracted. Distractions come at different times in our life. And this morning we're talking about distractions from our calling. We're talking about distractions from what God has called us to do in our life. Now look at Nehemiah chapter 6. Jeff already read the scripture to us, and so I just want to go back through it. Nehemiah chapter 6, though, I'm not going to go all the way through the chapter because I don't need to. There's 20 verses there, I believe. But as you look at it, what you're going to find out, just a kind of little Cliff Notes version, I would encourage you to read it. Anytime that you're doing what God wants you to do, there's somebody that wants to keep you from doing what God wants you to do. Now, in this case, Sanballat, Tobiah, and their whole crew are trying to keep Nehemiah and his crew from doing what God wants them to do in rebuilding the wall in 52 days. In fact, they leveraged every ounce of influence that they had to keep it from happening. They didn't like what Nehemiah was doing, so they leveraged it. In fact, when you read it, and you hear Jeff talk about it, and he reads it to you, you realize that they were trying to frighten him. They were sending letters to Nehemiah. They were saying things like this, everybody's talking, Nehemiah. You know, everybody's talking about what you're doing up there. They're saying you're building that thing for yourself. They're saying you're building that thing so that you can make yourself king. They're saying you're building that thing so that you can set up your own little thing up there. Everybody's talking. And these gentlemen wanted to get Nehemiah to go talk to them because they wanted to talk to him and talk him out of what he was doing. But more importantly, Nehemiah lets us know that their interests weren't in the good of the people. It was to harm Nehemiah and to keep him from doing what God had called him to do. You need to understand, you need to write this down. You will have distractions in life. You will have distractions in your marriage. Some of us this morning, if your wife was honest with you, husband, she would say you are distracted. You've got these things going on in your life. You're distracted. I don't feel loved. I don't feel appreciated. I don't feel wanted in this marriage because there's something that is more important to you, husband, than me. You're distracted. You can be distracted by work, by hobbies, by people, by places, by things. You're distracted. Some of us in here, you go into work tomorrow and they'll say, what's wrong with you? You haven't been yourself lately. You haven't been there. You've been kind of zoned out. What they don't know is, what your boss doesn't know, or your co-workers or whoever it might be, is you're distracted. Your mind's somewhere else. And so distractions will come, and you need to know that one of the greatest ways spiritual warfare begins to attack us is distractions. We talked about discouragement last week, but today we're talking about distractions. And I want you to see how Nehemiah handles distractions. It's just as easy as what we were doing here in the beginning. I'm talking and my phone rings. I'm talking, Jeff's phone rings. I'm talking, Jesse's phone rings. And we begin to become distracted. You guys are laughing. You're uncomfortable a little bit because it's kind of weird, right? You see, you became distracted. I became distracted. And life happens just like that. Listen, you need to write this down. The enemy doesn't always hit you with things that are mean or ugly or evil. He can hit you with, listen, good distractions. Is it possible this morning you're focused on something good when you should be focused on something great? The absolute opposing force to greatness is goodness. God's called you to greatness, but some of us have been distracted by some good things that are keeping us from doing the great things. Now look at what Nehemiah does, and I want you to see how he handles it, all right? Nehemiah chapter 6 verse 1 says, now when it was reported to Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, the Arab, and to the rest of our enemies, and we're not dealing with them today. We've dealt with them. We understand this is what the enemy does. He opposes us. If you haven't gotten that yet, you need to really check in and get it. When it was reported to them that I had rebuilt the wall and that no breach remained in it, although at that time I had not set up the doors in the gates, then Sanballat and Geshem sent a message to me saying, come, let us meet together at Sephram in the plain of Ono. They had a plan. They wanted to meet with him. But they were planning to harm me. That's what the enemy wants to do. He wants to harm you. These folks had sent a message to come. It would seem like Nehemiah would need to go. They're pretty influential people. They know people. People know them. People are talking. In fact, when you flip to the end of the chapter, one of the things that's harming Nehemiah is the fact that one of the people that are opposing him, people are talking well of him. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. Just because somebody talks well of somebody doesn't mean anything. My grandfather always said, be careful of the man that everyone seems to have only good things to say about. Are y'all with me? Come on now, wake up. Now, I've been sick this week, and I'm on a high dose of medicine this morning. There's no telling what I'm going to say. You might want to listen close. You might want to quote me later and go, can you believe he said that? I've said some stuff before that were close calls, and they wear me out through the week with it. So sometimes, see, we're in a fight, and we can't understand, but the person that we're in a fight with, whether it's somebody that you know, you love, your spouse or whatever, no one will listen to you because they are aligned with the person that is saying something against you. So Nehemiah knows this is going on. So it would make sense for Nehemiah to go meet this guy, to squash it, to get rid of the problem, to go present his case to the people that are making allegations against him so that he could give them truth, so that they could go, oh, okay, now we understand, go back to the people that they're influencing and make it all make sense. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. When opposition comes your way, it's never about finding out what the truth is. It's always about stopping the truth of Jesus Christ. Some of us waste all of our energy trying to convince somebody that you're never going to convince what is right and what is wrong. That's not the battle you want to fight. Nehemiah shows us that when you're in a distraction like that. So they sent a message to him, and so I sent a message to them saying, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? Distractions, get this, and I'm going to show you some things this morning. Distractions are intended to stop the work of God in your life. Are y'all with me? Can y'all hear me this morning? Man, you got to get this. You've got to get this. Distractions by the enemy are intended to stop the work of God in your life. The enemy will use them every which way you can imagine. He can use them through sickness. Hey, by the way, oh gosh, my ADD is going to be off the chain. I need to stop. I got to tell you all this. I was supposed to tell you this and I got distracted. Our bank loan was approved this week. It's go time. Isn't that awesome? That was awesome. Man, we got it all squared away on Sunday, and by Tuesday, man, you know what? I got distracted. I got distracted by this little sickness that everybody's carrying around, right? I got it and got distracted. Distractions come. Listen, it is important for me to tell you this. When the enemy can't destroy you, he'll distract you. When the enemy can't hurt you, he'll distract you. When he can't harm you, he'll distract you. Paul wrote in Galatians, he says, who has bewitched you? He says, and here's what the idea is, charmed. You have been charmed. And here's what he says. He says, they come to agitate and stir you up, right, to distract you from what God is wanting you to do. It stops the work. People that get distracted never really get back to where God wants them to be without some real serious digging in and soul searching. Distractions come in all kinds of different ways. You can be distracted by all kinds of things. Listen to this. I was reading this. Can I give y'all some facts here about distractions? It's hard to preach. Some of y'all fuss at me for how long I preach, but it's a miracle. Because they say the average time that you stay focused is just about 15 minutes, and then I'm supposed to do something else with you. Y'all hang in here with me for about 45. Ain't that something? Now, you're probably distracted, but I don't pay any attention to it. I just stay laser focused, right? It's a war of attrition. I'm just going to wear you down with it. But I was reading this week, watch this. Every time you focus your attention, you use a measurable amount of glucose and other metabolic resources. Studies show that each task you do tends to make you feel less effective at the next task. This is why I tell people, if you have something hard to do during the day, do it first. By the way, this is why some of you still haven't done that thing that you know you need to do. You keep putting it off to the end of the day every day, and by the time you get there, you're like, I'm too tired. That's true, right? When you want to do your devotions and you say, I'm going to do them at the end of the day, and then you get there and you go, I can't read, I'm too tired. You are. You really are, all right? So I taught a leadership conference at a big thing last year, and it was called Eat That Frog. Said if you got a ton of things to do during the day, the greatest thing that you can do is do the hard thing first. And so they said, eat that frog. You got to eat the frog first in the morning. The frog represented the hard things to do. And so I teach people in leadership, if you got a hard phone call to make, if you've got a hard decision to make it early, right? Preferably about 5:30. Maybe they won't answer the phone when you call them and tell them, all right? But do it early because at the end of the day, you're not going to have time for it. If you're going to have a conversation with your wife, you're going to have to really get down and talk about something. Don't wait till the end of the day. You're going to get the worst of them, right? And you're going to say, you don't even care. They do care, but they've used all of their energies. It's a physical thing with everything else. This is why you get the worst of people at night. You ever notice how your kids actually get sicker at night? Because they've used all their energy. Now watch. Studies show that each task you do tends to make you feel less effective at the next task. And this is especially true for high-energy tasks. So distractions really take their toll. Distractions are everywhere. And with the always-on technology of today, they take a heavy toll on productivity. Watch this. One study found that office distractions eat an average of 2.1 hours a day. So if you're wanting to know if distractions are real, they are. They're costing you about 2 hours a day in productivity in your own life. Another study published in 2005 found that employees spent an average of 11 minutes on a project before becoming distracted. So you spend 11 minutes on the project, and then you become distracted. Now, this is what was interesting to me, and this is where I'm going to try to tie all this stuff in. After an interruption or a distraction, it takes them 25 minutes to return to the original task. So when you sit down to do something, you say, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're having the meeting, whatever, and your phone rings. You say, I'm sorry, I have to take that call. You've probably spent somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 to 12, somewhere where we're averaging about 11 minutes on that particular task. It will take you 25 minutes to get back to the task at hand, if they do it at all. People switch activities every 3 minutes. That's why you sit in church and you fumble the whole time. You ever notice that? You come to church, sit down, you're out of coffee, coffee's too hot, coffee's too cold, I need to go use the bathroom, I need to get a mint, I need to do this, shh, stop, I need to find a pen, where's that piece of paper, I need a Kleenex. You do this the whole time you're in here, you don't even realize it. Make a call, speak with somebody else in a cubicle, whatever. Distractions are not just frustrating, they can become exhausting. By the time you get back to where you were, your ability to stay focused goes down even further as you have even less glucose available to you. So now what's happened to you is you've been using your glucose to focus, you took a distraction, you used more glucose, so now when you come back, whew, where was I? And it never really gets back to it. You change focus, check this out. If you change focus 10 times an hour, and one study showed people often change focus as much as 20 times an hour, and your product thinking time is only a fraction of what was possible. Less energy equals less capacity to understand, decide, recall, memorize, and inhibit. The result could be mistakes on important tasks, or distractions can cause you to forget good ideas and lose valuable insights. Having a great idea and not being able to remember it can be frustrating, like an itch you can't scratch, yet another distraction to manage. Is it possible that you are distracted? Is it possible that you have all this energy that you had focused on something spiritually or with your marriage or with your children, and you were doing great, but you got distracted along the way somewhere? Something happened to that energy that you were putting the focus on, and it sucked the life out of you. Did you see what happens? Is as you become distracted, it actually impacts the way that you focus on other things, what you can memorize, what you can recall, what you can remember. When you get distracted, and depending on the distraction determines the level of what you can recall, depending on the actual capacity of what you're dealing with. If you have a major phone call that's an emergency, even what you were focusing on, it may take you 2 days to remember what you were dealing with to come back to. But when they're just little nitpicky distractions, they will take you away so that now when you come back to what you're doing, you have less capacity to focus on. That maybe this morning the reason that you are in the situation with your husband and your wife or your spouse or your children is not that you don't care. It's not that you don't love them. It's not that you're not committed to the relationship. It's that you've gotten distracted somewhere along the way. That what you were focused on, your singular focus, has been shifted and taken away from you. One of the worst things that can happen to me, I know this about myself, one of the worst things that can happen to me is to be taking off of a task that I am absolutely heart involved in. Once I get taken off of that task to go do something else, it is very hard for me to give that much passion back to it. And I have to watch myself. Because what I'll do is I'll think of a great idea. I'll have something and we'll sit in a group and everybody will say, that's a great idea. I will baby it for a minute. I will water it for a minute. I will hand it off to somebody else. They say, okay, I'm going to lead this. We will use you in the future if we have any questions. Great. That's what I do. That's disciple making. That is reproductive leadership. You create it. You give it away. Let somebody else take care of it. I don't want it for myself. I do that. But here's what happens to me. I get away from it to go on to dream about other things that when I get the phone call to come back to help with this, I'm over it. You ever been that way? And they want me to have the same passion that I had when I began, but now my passion has shifted to this other thing, and I really don't have as much passion for this. And sometimes they'll say, well, you don't care about this. I do care about this, but now I am distracted by this. It will happen in your life. It's why when sometimes you get older and you're an empty nester, some of y'all are empty nesters in here, right? Y'all empty nesters? Some of us that are not are just dreaming of the day. But some of you that have made it there are going, don't waste those years. Enjoy them. Because it's different when the house gets quiet, right? Because my house is so loud, you have to open the windows to let the noise out. It's loud, right? But you know what I've noticed sometimes in marriages is that they get the kids raised and we don't know each other anymore, right? The kids were a product of the fact that we knew each other and we wanted to create a family together. The kids came along, and somewhere in the 18 years or whatever it was that they stayed at home, we got distracted with what the kids were doing, that we lost out on the love that we have for one another, so that when the kids moved out, our marriage moved out as well, and the reason for us being together moved out. And so now you have people who have late marriage divorces. And you go, what happened? You got distracted. You get distracted. One of the hardest things for me to do is to explain to my kids sometimes, you're going to go stay with your grandmother because me and your mother are going away for a few days to spend time together. We ain't going? Nope. That ain't fair. I don't care. Life's hard, kid. Get over it. And I do that for a reason. I do it so that I can focus on my wife and my wife can focus on me. Because for the whole rest of the year, we've got so many things pulling on us. We pass each other on the road. One's going to baseball practice, and one's going to cheerleading, or one's going to this, and we pass each other. Same thing happens at work. What got you there and why you were hired has now been distracted by other things. You're frustrated because of the people that you work with and how they're treating you and what they're talking about. You get distracted. Or maybe you go home at night and you're sitting in your living room to spend time with your children, but you get distracted by Facebook or your phone. We are distracted. We are a distracted generation. And here's what Nehemiah said. Nehemiah said, I am doing a great work. I'm not coming down off this wall to deal with you. Oh, but you should come talk to us. It's important because everybody's talking to us. And Nehemiah says to them, he says, I am doing a great work. I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? We know that distractions are intended to stop the work. Now, I've got to tell you something. If you ever pick up this leadership principle and you ever put this in your life, this is a spiritual principle. This isn't Phillip Martin. Nehemiah teaches us through God's Word. God taught us this. But if you ever become a guy or a lady that doesn't have time for distractions, you will be seen as a person that no one can talk to. You will be seen as a person that doesn't care. I'm going to give you the 411 here. Well, I called her and she didn't have time for me. I asked them to sit down and talk with me. They won't do it. Listen to me. There's nothing wrong with being selfish for the cause of Christ on your life. There's nothing wrong with saying, my family won't be there. There's nothing wrong with telling your children they're not going. There's nothing wrong with telling work, don't bother me tonight. I'm with my family. We are afraid we're going to lose out or we're going to mess up the wrong apple cart or we're going to do this. But I'm telling you, one of the greatest things that God gave us, and we are living in a day and time where people don't understand it. Anybody is accessible 24 hours a day. And if you don't make yourself accessible, if you don't bend yourself around the will of somebody that thinks they have to have you, when they have to have you, you are seen as the enemy or someone that is out of touch or you're too good or you're too arrogant or you're whatever. But listen to me. God has said sometimes the greatest thing you could ever do spiritually is say, no, I'm doing a great work here. So let me give you courage to do that. Now let's talk about it just a little bit. Here's what we know about it, is Nehemiah's in the middle of his work doing great things for Christ and making a difference. He has one focus, rebuild the wall. But it's right in the middle of his middle of his building that the distractions come. Write this down. Opposition will come often in your life, in your marriage, with your children, and whatever God's called you to do. I fully expect as we're building this building, we have opposition and distractions on the front end. We have a great week this week because we were approved, and so we're moving, and so you'll start seeing stuff showing up on that property in the next 3 weeks, as long as the rain doesn't come. Whoever's been praying for rain, stop. Silly. We got it, okay? But then I fully expect that we're going to have distractions along the way over the next year. It's going to happen. And when those distractions come, people are going to go, oh, what's going on? And you just have to understand, nothing's going on that's not biblical, spiritual. Distractions come. You have to know that in your marriage. You have to know that with your family. But you need to write this down. Distractions will come in the middle of your greatest success. You have to understand what's going on here. Nehemiah said when I had a report that we had rebuilt the wall. See, sometimes we think if we get to a certain threshold, it will stop. Listen, until you get to heaven, it ain't going to stop. When the enemy can't stop you, he will try to distract you. If the enemy can't thwart the process and the dream and the calling of God on your life, he will distract you by insignificant things that you will think are important things. He will distract you with things that you will give your energy to, because I tell my staff all the time this, don't expect someone to have the same motives that you have. Here's where I get in trouble. Sometimes I expect people, all the time, I expect you to treat me like I would treat you. I do. I expect you to treat me like I would treat you. I'm not going to talk about you. I'm not going to try to mess your family up. I'm not going to try to keep you from getting your financial whatever you need. I'm not going to try to keep you from being successful. If we have a conversation, I'm going to talk to you truthfully, and you're going to talk to me truthfully. I'm not going to expect us to sit down and you pull out a recorder or keep it hidden and record our conversations. Right? Do everybody that I come into contact treat me that way? No. So what happens? And everybody you come into contact doesn't treat you that way. So what happens? You get your feelings hurt. You get destroyed. You've been betrayed. You've been hurt. Somebody's hurt you. What do? Well, then here's what happens to you is you quit. It's a distraction. It's a distraction. Don't let other people's shortcomings and sinful ways distract you from being as godly as you possibly can. Right? Don't you expect if you do right, people will treat you right? Don't you expect that? Now come on, don't look at me so holy. Y'all look at me like a bunch of Baptists this morning. You believe, and I believe this too, sometimes we believe if we behave right, then it'll all be right. But folks, it doesn't happen that way. You got to understand that the enemy will offer distractions in the middle of your greatest work, in the middle of your greatest days in a marriage, in the middle of your greatest times as a dad, in the middle of your greatest times as a husband. He will offer distractions. You'll get sick. You'll have financial problems. You'll have all these different things going on. Folks, listen to me. That's not the time to give up. It's the time to press forward. When the enemy can't take you from it, he will keep you from enjoying it. Oh, that's so good. I'm glad you came so you can watch me preach to myself. See, he had already done it. So if the enemy can't keep you from doing the great things of God, he will keep you from enjoying the great things of God. Don't quit. Don't give up. Don't get distracted. So Nehemiah knew a couple of things. Here's what he says to him. So I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? A couple of things Nehemiah knew. And then I want to tell you some things that Jesus said, and then we'll be out this morning. Nehemiah knew a couple of things. Here's what he knew. Number one was this, when we're talking about distractions. Y'all ready? Y'all making notes? I didn't even put a number by this. It's just a dash. Dash one. Nehemiah knew he was in the midst of a great work. First thing that Nehemiah knew, and listen to what he says. So I sent a message to them saying, I am doing a great work. I am doing a great work. Oftentimes, it's easy to get distracted when you don't realize that you're in the middle of some great work. So many times we don't realize that right now what God has us doing, or the doors that God's opened for us, or where we are, what we're walking through are great works. It's a great place to be. Sometimes you don't realize that. Sometimes you don't realize that the greatest days are the ones you're living right now, because you're expecting them to be something that they're not. You're expecting them to do something that they're not. You're looking for the big, Hollywood romantic thing to say that this is the great work. But sometimes you're in your greatest days and you don't even know it. Ask any grandparent in here. They will tell you something that the greatest days were when their kids were in high school and they were driving them nuts at home and they were telling their friends, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. These teenage years are killing me. But now that they look back, they say, they were the greatest years of my life. They're the greatest years of my life.
And so you don't realize that you're in a great work. You don't realize that you're in a situation in your life that is a great, great work. But Nehemiah knew that he was in a great work. He knew that where he was great. And when I say great, it could have meant big. It could have meant awesome. He could have been saying, hey, listen, I'm at an awesome place in my life. I'm not coming down. I'm at an awesome place here. Or he could have said, man, this is a big work. Like I'm in the middle of this wall that's 2.5 miles wide. This is kind of big. It's overwhelming. I ain't got time to do that. This is kind of a big project here. But I don't think that's what Nehemiah meant. I don't think when he said a great work, he meant big or awesome. It's just too big. I don't have enough time. That's not what he meant at all. I think what Nehemiah meant was I'm in the midst of some godly work in my life. I'm in the midst of some godly work. He knew that what he was doing was divine and it needed his focus. I mean, how would life change if we looked at our life and what we're doing is godly? How would our life change? How would it change the conversations that we have? How would it change what we allow to come into our life? Have you ever said something like this? I just don't need this right now. You ever said that? Have you ever given your time to something for a period of time and then look back at it and say, I cannot believe I spent so much time on that? You ever been to that point to where, you get distracted, you don't even know how you did it, but then there you are, and you look back and go, man, I have lost focus on these other things. Here's what happens. Pay close attention. Oh, this is so good. You have to realize that where you are and what you're doing and what God's called you to do is godly in order to say no to some good things. Folks, there's opportunities that come my way all the time. I'm just talking about me, okay? There's opportunities that come my way all the time. Somebody will call me. Somebody got my number from somebody. I don't know where they get it. They'll text me, hey, Pastor, can I call? Can I do? And there's opportunities that come my way all the time. Somebody wants to throw a little money at me doing this over here on the side or doing this or doing whatever. There's always things going on. Do you know how many people I tell no on a monthly basis? And I'm going to tell you, it's some fun stuff. There's some things that I turn down that I don't go and speak because you know why? I don't want to be away from my family. And it's not that I don't, I'm afraid to be away from home like I'm afraid of the dark. That's true. But I'm not afraid to be away from home. In fact, there's sometimes I look at those 3 big ones that I'm raising, those 15-year-olds, and I go, please, somebody, anybody, call me, need me for a month-long conference in Alaska. I don't care where it is. Get me out of here. There's times in my life where I have to say no to things because it would directly infringe on the godly work that I'm doing. Are y'all with me this morning? There's times I have to turn down. I'm just talking about me because I don't get mad at myself when I pick on me. There's times when people say, hey, you're not doing this, you're not going there, you're not doing it. Now, I ain't seen you in a while doing this. I can't. Well, why not? Because I'm doing something over here that's godly, that God has called me to. It's great. Is it tiring? You better believe it. Is it hard? Yes. Do you need a break from it from time to time? Yes. But I can't come down off the wall because I'm doing a work. I'm doing a work, aren't you? I'm doing a work in my marriage. I'm doing a work with my children. I'm doing a work at this church. I ain't coming down off the wall. Well, we think you need to come down off the wall. I don't care what you think. God's got me in a godly work. And we have to put those parameters. So you have to know this in your life. Is it possible that you're distracted? You come down off the wall. You've been off the wall for 20 years, man. You've been off the wall for 20 years. That's why dinners are weird. That's why you don't feel connected. That's why you don't understand it. You got distracted. And listen to me, distractions don't always come through opposition. Sometimes distractions come from yourself. You get mad and take your ball and go home, and you got distracted. Right? You got distracted by yourself, by your anger, by your frustration, by your pride. And I'm going to go do that. And so you go and you got distracted. So now what happens? Listen to me. When you get distracted, you become disconnected from the wall and the great work of your life. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. Hear what I... The wall was going to get built with or without Nehemiah. Are y'all listening? The wall was going to get built without or with Nehemiah. He just happened to be the one that God chose at the time to build the wall. Listen, that child's going to grow up with or without you. That wife is going to grow with or without you. That organization is going to go on with or without you. Do you realize that you're walking on holy ground with the opportunities that God gave you? Listen, this ain't holy ground up here where I'm standing. This is the stage. This ain't holy ground just because it says church on the building. That living room you're standing in that you're throwing a fit in, that's holy ground. That son and daughter that you're talking to, that's holy ground. Why, Dad, why'd you come off the wall? They're growing. Ain't you looked at the pictures lately? They're growing up with or without you. Hey, let me give you this. I'm telling you, if I weren't me and I weren't a preacher, I'd listen to this message. I'm telling you, I signed up for the conference. I turned 41 yesterday. Yeah. 9 more years and I get to go into the joy group with Jeff. When did 50 become a senior adult? Huh. But I would listen to this. Because this right here is the absolute curse of our generation. I don't care if you believe it or not. I study people. That's what I do. It's the curse of our generation. I've seen people get sideways and fuss about stuff that has nothing to do with nothing. And you know what you want to say to them? Get back up on the wall. What are you down here for? What are you down here for? Get back up on the wall. Because I'm going to tell you something. When you get off the wall, you notice all the cracks and everything else. See, sometimes people won't come down off the wall to inspect other people's work. That ain't got nothing to do with you. Get back up there doing what you were supposed to be doing. Right? It's the curse of our generation. We are the excuse generation. I'm not talking about them kids that are meeting upstairs now. I'm talking about y'all. I'm talking about me. We are the excuse generation. Right? We're the excuse generation. We fuss about this. And if you don't believe me, just turn on Twitter or on social media or Facebook and just watch what people act like. It is absolutely ridiculous. And here's the problem. We come down off the wall. You come down off the wall of your family, of your relationships, of your work, of your God-given call. You come down off the wall. Listen to what happens to you. When you get off the wall, the monumental task of getting back up to where you were seems too big to accomplish. Now you're overwhelmed. Let me tell you what you want to do. When you find yourself at the bottom of the wall and the workers stayed on top of the wall to want to work, here's what you're going to do. Now that you're on the bottom and can't seem to climb back up, you're going to want to bring everybody that's working where you used to be back down to where you find yourself now so that everybody can be down there miserable where you are when you should have put yourself back up on the wall. Somebody needs to run for president on that campaign. Not build the wall, get on the wall. I think that's what I'm going to do this week. People start fussing at me, get on the wall. I think it's in my brain too, because when I was little, we had a naughty wall. Anybody else have a naughty wall? If you got in trouble at PE, you had to go sit on the naughty wall. I had a permanent seat on the naughty wall. Naughty wall. Nehemiah knew this. Number 2 is this. Number 2. He couldn't come down. So I sent messengers to them saying, I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down. He knew that if he came down, if he took a break, he wouldn't come back. You got to get this. It wasn't that he couldn't. He could come down. It wasn't that he couldn't physically walk down. Anybody that's ever done anything great with their life know this. If you ever leave where you are, you'll never go back to where you were. Nehemiah knew he couldn't come down off a wall because here's what would happen. If he comes down off a wall, he'll never go back. If he leaves the work, it's hard to go back. Sometimes you hear people say this, we just need to have a little separation here. We're not getting divorced, we just need to separate. I don't know what the statistics are, but I'm going to tell you this just from my experience. Many people that separate don't ever get back together. There are some people that do. It worked for them, but for most people it doesn't. Once communication breaks down in a relationship or stops, let me just tell you something. It's over. It's dead. Done. You want to kill a relationship? Stop talking. You want to kill a relationship? Stop communicating. You want to kill a work relationship, a spiritual relationship? Stop talking. Let me tell you something. One of the reasons that some of us in here are fussing over how we are spiritually is because you don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ. You say, well, He lives inside of me. When was the last time you talked to Him besides asking Him to bless your double Big Mac? See, you trying to act all spiritual. You can't act spiritual when there's no communication. And if there's no communication, there's no relationship. Listen, folks, you ain't got to like this. See, spiritually, the way we get back up on the wall is start talking to the one that's building the wall. See, if you leave, listen, this is why it's so important. You've got to stay focused and come to church. You've got to be attending church. This is what is so detrimental. This is why all those people that are my age and older that I used to run around with and network, and I see what they quote and what they say, and I'm like, I know you, bro. Come on, man. But I see all this stuff. All these people are trying to figure out how to rebuild the church or how to keep churches growing or how to do all this stuff. They're talking about 5,000 or 6,000 churches a week that close down. There's 80-something thousand churches that will close this year. There's one church that closes every second. It closes every second. Now, the numbers ought to astound you that there's that many churches. And while some of them are saying, we can't let our churches close, I want you to hear what I say, and I'm not asking anybody to like it, because I ain't running for no board. I ain't trying to be all high up in the North American Mission Board or the Southern Baptist Convention. Let me tell you something. One of the greatest things that can happen in America today is some of these churches to close. Stop trying to save half-hearted churches. They're giving a bad look to Jesus Christ. The reason they're half-hearted is because half-hearted Christians stopped going the half the time that they were going in the first place, and now we have an attendance. The average attendance of a believer is 12 times a year. They say, well, we're praying for revival. We're praying for this. We're praying for... Listen, you pray all you want to, but until God's people begin to act like God's people and stop leaving the wall and actually plug into where God's working in their lives, we're going to pray and pray and pray and not see a thing happen. We are God's people. We are God's people. We are saved by Him through grace. And we leave the wall every time there's a bigger, better deal come along. Have you ever noticed how the bigger, better deals always come on the weekends? Have you ever noticed? We don't have a problem telling somebody I can't do that because I don't have enough off day. I've got a sister-in-law. I know she's probably listening. I love her. But I'll say this. Hey, brother. I was talking to him the other day. Hey, brother. Hey, you know what I was thinking? I got some days off. Won't you get your family? I'll get my family. We'll have to take Mom. Hey, let's go down to the beach. Let's go chase the sun for a few days. And my sister-in-law kills the whole trip. Kills it. Boom. And she said it like this. Oh, I'd love to. I hope she's watching. I love her. Oh, I'd love to. Wouldn't that be good? Boy, I'd like to be it. But I don't have any days off. And you know what I want to say? We'll send you pictures. Right? We will send you pictures. Or get a new job. Or quit. People quit all the time. Quit. It's the highest job. I mean, we ain't ever had a president that put people to work. You can quit today and start next week somewhere else. Let's go. But you know what? Here's the reason I use her. Because he killed the trip. We're all waiting on her to bank more days, I guess. I don't know. We rarely say that for a Sunday experience. Are y'all listening? Oh, I didn't even mean to say all this. I don't know what they gave me for a service. It's good stuff. What would change in your life if you said, hey, look, I ain't missing Sunday.
would change? What would change if you finally said to your son or your daughter, we're not missing on Sunday? You see, here's what's going to happen, is you're going to say, well, I can't do that because, and I'm not playing politics here with you guys. I'm raising kids. I get it. Don't look at me like I ain't. And you know what the truth is maybe I'm hamstringing my children. Maybe I am. Maybe I've got one or two athletes in there that would really do really well if I would just back off a little bit and let them go play on Sundays or do all this stuff. I'm just being honest with you. You ain't got to like it. I ain't bagging on nobody. If this is what you do, it's what you do. I'm not bagging on you. But let me offer another opportunity here. Can I? Can I just offer you the other side of the coin? Maybe I am hamstringing my children. Maybe I'm raising a kid in my home and God gave him to me. And he's going to be, or she, it's going to be the next right thing. But I'm so hung up on Jesus that I've killed their future because I'm going to make my kids be in church on Sunday. You say, well, they're going to, hey, can I tell you something? There's more of us than there are of them. If you finally tell the people that you're paying that we don't do it on Sunday, let me tell you what they'll do. They will move it so that they still get paid. I don't think y'all understand how business works. They ain't going to cut everybody. They ain't going to cut everybody. You're trying to do it Lone Ranger. See, that's what the people of the church don't know. If we all hooked up together, this is why you could do it in certain ways in the 80s and 90s, because the church was all hooked up together. Now we just kind of let y'all free fall and do whatever you want. I'm not up here spouting off something. I'm just trying to tell you there's power in numbers, guys. If you want culture to change, change it. If you don't change culture, culture will change you. Are y'all with me? All right, what did he know? He knew if he came down, he wouldn't go back. Number 3 is this. He knew the work would stop. So he knew he was in a great work. He knew, and I'm not picking on anybody, so if that's what you do, listen, don't think your pastor's going to be mad at you. It's funny, sometimes people look at me and go, don't be mad at me. I wouldn't be mad at you. You go do your thing. I'm just offering you a different side of the coin, okay? Don't be mad at me either. It's just the way it is. So here's what he knew. He knew that the work would stop. Nehemiah knew that there was others working because he was working. They were sold out because he was sold out. They believed it mattered because it mattered to him. Others are looking to Nehemiah. Listen what happens. When you come off the wall, you don't come off the wall because you know it's great. You don't come off the wall because it's hard to go back. If you leave it, it's hard to go back. That's why if you live in the South, if I want to make my point, I just take you on a drive on some of these back roads. You ever seen how many car projects set out in front yards? They left the transmission one Saturday and never returned. It's sat there for 20 years. But the third thing is this, listen. Nehemiah knew if he came down off the wall, that others would leave too. Others would leave too. Let me encourage you this morning. You may feel alone. You may feel like it don't matter. You may feel like it doesn't matter what you're doing or how you're doing it. Folks, what you do matters. People are looking to you. When you quit, when you back off, when you are not as focused on your family, when you're not as focused on your kids, when you leave, they will not be as focused either. Some people are sold out simply because you are. I have noticed even in my own home, sometimes my children change the way they speak because I'm standing there. They expect it to be said a certain way because of me. Now, when they're out of my presence, I'm sure they talk different, but I'm telling you, there's something that I bring to the table by being there. If I ever quit, it will give credence to what they're trying to... Listen, if you ever come off the wall, there's other people. Now, I'm not talking about just your children. I'm talking about your spouse. You see this in marriages. When parents don't respect each other, when the husband and wife don't respect each other, you can watch it by clockwork. There's one of the kids that'll pick up on it, and they will talk to the parent the way that the father did or the way that the mother did. It is shown time and time again. When you step off the wall, others will go with you. And oh, by the way, oftentimes it is harder on the ones who quit because of you than the one that quit in the first place. That's why if you're raised in a home of an alcoholic, they gave it credence for you to be an alcoholic. But sometimes, here's what we found. The dad could control it, and people couldn't see it. But the son got all the worst characteristics of the father, and he's 10 times worse than his daddy. And they say, you're just like your daddy was. See, daddy gave it credence.
We got to be careful when we come down off the wall. This is why we have to look at opposition. We have to look at good things in life and that are not the great things. And we say, I am in a great work. I cannot come down off that wall. There are too many that are counting on me to come down off that wall. We were sitting there with the bank, and the bank looked at me after all the conversation was going on. I want you to hear this is just an illustration. It made me really uncomfortable. But those big bankers were sitting there, and I was in a pair of jeans that had holes in them, and a button-up shirt, and a halfway trashy-looking jacket. Sitting in this big bank downtown Knoxville Market Square. Come on, JT. I didn't even get to the second part of my sermon. I'll tell them to you. I'll give you my points anyways. And listen to what the bankers wanted to do. They looked at all of our financials. They said, you're doing great. This is crazy. How are you doing this? And oh, by the way, I pray that you're praying about what God would call you to give for Easter. I want to show these guys something. They may never see your face, but I want these guys to look and see what God is doing in Roane County. Financially, I'm asking you some big gifts. We're looking for some big gifts. I'd love to see this year be the year that somebody I'd love to see somebody give about $200,000 to the Grove. I've seen hundreds. I've not seen that yet, but it's going to happen. I've been on staff before where I've seen somebody gave $1 million, and I thought, I'll never see that day, but it's going to happen here in Roane County. But listen to what I'm about to tell you. I'm sitting at the end, and I'm listening to all these guys work, and I don't know anything. Here's the only question I asked. When can y'all get this done? That's all I asked. I said, are the numbers good? Yes. Can we make this work? Yeah, we're way good on this. Okay, when can we get started? And those guys were sitting at the end of the table in this big conference room, and they took their glasses, and they said, Mr. Martin, how long have you been at the Grove? All of a sudden, it became a deposition. I said, I've been here, it'll be 8 years senior pastor in April, but I was here about a year and a half before that, so I'm going on 10 years in Roane County. Okay. How many kids you got? I said 5. Are they in school there in Roane County? I said, yes, sir. I said, I've got 3 in high school that are freshmen, 2 in the elementary school, but next year I'll have 3 in the high school, 1 in the middle school, and 1 in the elementary school, all in Kingston. How long you and your wife been married? I said, it'll be 19 years in March. I'm like, well, you didn't ask none of these other guys that. Ask those guys. Ask them, you know. God took his glasses off, set them down, and said, I hate to ask you this. And he said, God can do anything, but do you plan on staying in Kingston? And it was in that moment I knew that the future of our church and the approval of this loan hinged on one answer. Now, y'all don't have to like this, but I'm just telling you how this works. It was on what I was about to say next. If I'd have said, you know what, I promised these guys to build this building, but they're a bunch of scallywags, and they're absolutely killing me. And I'm thinking about going to Florida. He'd have said, oh, thanks for coming in, appreciate it. Right? If I'd have said, you know, I don't know, I think they're going to try to fire me next month. They wanted to see that I was committed to you and to this future in order to put their money where my mouth was. Are y'all with me? You know why? Because the world knows what some of us Christians haven't picked up on yet. If you got a group of people looking to one guy that's on top of the wall, if that guy steps down off the wall, guess where everybody else goes? Off the wall. Now let me ask you a question. We ain't sitting in no bank. This ain't no $1 million loan. But sir, how long are you going to be committed to Christ? You see, when you're not committed, you can't expect the people that are sitting around your dinner table to be committed. Ma'am, how long are you going to pursue Christ? You see, some of us are looking around our dinner table expecting God to do something different in their lives than what we've experienced in our lives, when you don't realize it was never what God did to our lives. It was what we did in the first place when we left the wall, and we're asking God to do something different for them when they're looking at us to say, Mom, Dad, friend, brother, get back up on the wall. And if you'll get back up on the wall, I'll be on the wall with you. I want to tell you something. I don't want to quit. I'm 41. I know that's not old. Although the other day somebody came to me and said, hey, we're thinking about starting a Young Leaders of Rome County. Would you help us? I said, sure. They told me all about it, and I said, well, when can I join the meeting? They said, oh, you can't join our meeting. I just need to know how to get it started. I said, what you talking about? Am I not a leader? Yes, but you're not a young leader. I said, say what? I said, well, I'd like to know who you're going to have from the Grove come. They said, we were going to see if Tyler wanted to join. I said, I will kill that kid. Man, I don't know. I've said a lot of stuff this morning, but I want to say this to you. As I do get older, and I'm not old yet, but as I do get older, guys, I want you to catch what's in me. I want you to catch what is in me. I used to be ashamed to say that. I want you to catch what's in me. Okay? I can't promise you everybody will like you because they won't. I can't promise you people won't leave you because they will. I can't promise you that people will ever understand what you're doing because they won't. But I could promise you this, that if you ever caught what is in me, and some of you have it, if you ever caught what was in me, it will change your life. And there's people that we know, and we all know, and they're down at the bottom of the wall saying, you need to come down, you need to do this. They're doing it to your life, they're doing it to my life. But we know people like that, right? But you know why I'm standing on this wall? I'm not standing on this wall to put a building on Highway 70. I'm not standing on this wall so that we can say we had a multi-million-dollar complex. I'm not even standing on this wall so that it will benefit the community, even though it will, and you have no idea what is going on behind the scenes right now that's going to absolutely take over. I'm just telling you, that's not why I'm doing it. You know why I'm doing it? Not because I'm a pastor. I want you to hear me. Please hear me. You know why I'm doing this? Because I'm a dad. I'm a dad. And you know what I desire more than anything? I want to see your dreams fulfilled. I want to see the calling fulfilled. I want to see the fulfilling of calling on the Grove. That's why I'm sent down here. But you know what I want to see? I want to be on the wall, working at a great work that God's called us to do. And I want to look to my left, and I want to see my son Malachi working at the great work. And I want to see my daughter Mahala with her husband working on the great work. And I want to see her husband's parents on the wall working at the great work. And I want to see my son Memphis enjoying the great work so that he can take the trial and he can take the word and he can build and go further than his father ever did. Because his father said, I'm doing a great work and I can't come down because God is changing my life eternally. I want you to want that. I want you to want that. I can't make you want that, but man, I want you to want that. I want you to want that for your wife and for your children. And it means sometimes you're standing on the wall and you should have been somewhere else, or you wanted to be somewhere else, but God's got you there. There's no greater fulfillment. There's no greater fulfillment than when you lead by doing a great work, so that you're not on the great work, but your children are below the wall, or you're down on the bottom and your children, by mercy of God, they fell in love with somebody else that got them on the wall. But get on the wall and do great works for Christ. Jesus said it this way. I'm done. JT, go ahead, hit a lick. Do something right over there. Jesus said it this way. Can I read you his words? See if this is fitting. He was talking about seed. Boy, I've been this before. I'm just telling you, man. Jesus said the seed which fell among the thorns. He says these are the ones, he's talking about people now, these are the ones who have heard. Now listen to these next words. And as they go on their way, they are choked out with worries, riches, pleasures of life. and bring no fruit to maturity. Here's what Jesus said about distractions. He says distractions come as you're going on your way. You're on your way right now. You're on a journey, folks. You're on your way. Jesus, listen, if you didn't like what I said before, just listen to what Jesus said. You're on your way. You're on your way to heaven. He said, you've heard. But as you're on your way, here's the three things he calls it. Worries. You're worried. You're worried you can't do this. You're worried you can't go there. People won't want to go on mission trips, but they're worried the plane's going to crash, so they don't go. You're worried you can't tithe because you ain't going to have enough money. So you're worried. You get distracted by your worry, and it chokes you out. He says riches means the things of life. You gave up doing this so that you could have those riches. Riches, it literally means anything that you got your eyes focused on, not just money, but you're working to get that. And so you've lost your way. Pleasures of life, your hobbies, sensual pleasures. And you know what Jesus says? Here's the worst part. He doesn't say that you're going to die. He says people that are distracted, listen, come off a wall. Never become mature Christians. Did you hear that? You're distracted, and literally you can't mature in your faith. I don't know, maybe you're distracted this morning. Boy, I'm just telling you, I've been distracted. I have been distracted before. Right now I'm not. I'm laser focused. I have been distracted, and I ask you this morning, are you distracted? Greatest thing you should do is lay your distraction down and focus on the cross of Christ and let Him bring your faith to maturity. Let's pray. God, I love you. Thank you so much this morning for your word. I pray that we'd be men and women that would be on the wall working, not coming down, but working for what you called us to do. I would bet there's probably men and women in here that's distracted. I would bet there's families that are distracted. I would bet there's husbands or wives. They just haven't been growing. They don't know what the deal is. I say, I don't feel like I'm growing. Well, it's because they're distracted by worries, riches, pleasures, hobbies, goals that are not godly, good things but not great things. And maturity of their faith is just stifled. God, would you move during our time of invitation? And God, if there's somebody that doesn't know you, may today be the day of salvation. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's stand.